just as a reminder, so when the faculty approved the signature learning outcomes, you all approved the 7 programmatic learning outcomes, or what we would refer to as the PLOs. And these represent what students are able to do at the conclusion of the program. So they're broader and they're achieved through multiple courses. While it's not official, we're going to try to work towards making these 7 PLOs the university outcomes. So these, for us to say these are going to be like university-wide for undergraduate sector. These are the skills that we want students to come out with. So, and then underneath that are the 19 student learning outcomes. So these are attained specifically through different courses. So the courses that you teach all inform then the 7 programmatic learning outcomes. Okay. So as a reminder, here are the 7 programmatic learning outcomes. And I highlighted the 2 that we're focusing on for this year. So ethics, students being able to interact knowledgeably and ethically with people and ideas from many cultures, religions, and identities. And then communications, students speak, write, read, and listen effectively. So these are the 2. All 7, as I mentioned, are what represent what students are able to do at the completion of the program. So these are broadly speaking like the skill sets that we want students to leave with. So once we can make the programmatic learning outcomes university-wide, this is the relationship that between them. So the programmatic learning outcomes are sort of the broad, like end of degree outcomes, and then underneath each piece underneath informs that. So the academic departments, student affairs is now student development. So student development, and then the signature learning, otherwise known as the general education curriculum. So all 3 pieces inform the student experience that lead to students meeting those outcomes. So for some departments, you might already have a departmental outcome related to communication or ethics. So I'm looking at Lois, and I'm guessing there's a communication outcome in the communication partner, right? So if you do have one, then it's important to identify what courses that you're specifically delivering that content, but not only where, but how. So part of the program mapping that we did as part of program or curriculum mapping that we did in program review a couple years ago, that map becomes important to look at. And then looking at then how are you assessing that outcome in those specific areas. For many of y'all in departments and units, you may not have a specific outcome, but you teach ethics or you teach communication, right? So even in music, you're teaching ethical behavior, right, around being in the music field, right? So, so if you don't have a specific outcome, do you have a specific course where you're delivering that content? And then if you do have a specific course, how are you delivering the content? So this should look familiar for those who did the curriculum mapping. Looking at it, are you delivering it on an introductory level? So are you assuming that they have sort of no knowledge of the topic prior to the class? Are you reinforcing what some of the basic level concepts, or are you teaching it at an advanced level? So if you don't have a specific outcome, but you are teaching that content, when you look at that course, are you assuming that students have had some level of communication? So are you assuming that they've had English 110 and 111 before they come into your course? Are you assuming they've had UC 120 before they come into that course? So it's important to identify like what your assumptions are about how you're delivering that content. If we have a map of this, what we need to know is how are we delivering it to help students at the end of the day reach those programmatic learning outcomes. So the purpose of the assessment planning for this year is for us to begin to develop that map. So you know what you all do in your individual units, but we don't, as a whole, as a university, don't know exactly what is happening. So in your in individual units, I think so you need to start by saying, okay, do you have an outcome? And if so, do you have an assessment? If you have an assessment, great, use that this year, go with it. If you don't, can you develop one with the faculty? And then if so, develop it, use it. If not, and I have a couple slides on different resources that are available that you can use to help assess. So if you want to assess communication in your department and you don't have an outcome or assessment, and there are ready-made resources that are available for you to do that. If you don't have an outcome, then again, sitting down with the faculty and saying, what classes do you teach this content? So in what classes might you teach ethics? And so identifying that class, and then to what level are you teaching it, and then again, developing the assessment. So it's really identifying those pieces for us. This year, you could stop doing anything that wasn't working, or you feel like you need a break from. And then for some folks, and Nate's not the best example because he teaches ethics, but like he's already got a nice process in place. There's a rubric already in place. Like you may want to continue doing some stuff, like UC 120 is another one, right? Where the instructors are already sort of used to that process. You can feel free to continue doing that, and we'd like to know that you're continuing to do that, and it helps me too because like in the UC 120 example, I help you all collect the data, so like it's important to fill out the form so that I know that you're continuing to do that so that I can help you function. So if there's processes that are working and that are already effective that aren't related to ethics and communications, continue to do that. But if there's stuff that you've just been trying that hasn't really been working, like feel free to sort of press pause on that. So if you need to develop resources, there are several ones that I'm happy to provide. This is just a summary. The AACU has a value rubric specifically focused on ethical reasoning. I believe the UC 410 rubric was modeled slightly around that, so modified. UC 410 also does have a rubric, so happy to share that. And then there are a couple different, if you say don't necessarily have an assignment already tied, there are a couple really good resources. There is a book called 101 Ethical Dilemmas by Cohen, is the last name, C-O-H-E-N. I know Nate highly recommends this book, and I know that there's some other departments that use this book. It's also used in the co-curricular setting, so Jenny Smith was saying that they use that book as well. So they're basically scenarios, is my understanding, right? Okay, so they're basically scenarios that you can give to students, and there's a bunch of them, so they can be tailored around your specific discipline. And then Nate just told me, this is not on the handouts that because I just added this, about this great website that has also scenarios that you can download and use. So you said they're also by different topics, right?
Yeah, so they're organized around different disciplines as well as different topics, right? So there'll be a subsection for like media ethics, business ethics, ethics in the law.
Yeah. So those might be
scu.edu/.
Yeah, I just added that. Yeah, it's not on the handout.
Say it again.
The Markula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University.
And the reason I mentioned this is that if you have an assignment like that, so you give them a scenario and you have to sort of analyze it for that ethical reasoning that's centered around your discipline, that really lends itself to creating a signature assignment. So signature assignments are embedded within the course. They're used to specifically sets outcomes across different sections in different departments. So you sort of take a concept like analyze an ethical situation. You can adapt that to your own discipline, use a common rubric to assess it, and be able to then assess that particular outcome. Right? So for units who might be needing to develop an assessment around ethics, say you teach ethics in your course, but you don't have necessarily an assignment around it, these two resources could be helpful. I'm gonna try to get a couple copies of the 101 ethical dilemmas book as well, so that would be available. And I know there's a big faculty around campus that use the book, so I'm sure we can get some copies. But so that might be a starting point if you need to go back to your faculty and say, how are we going to assess ethics this year? These two resources might be best. And so signature assignments are really helpful then because it does create that consistency, and again gives us that bigger picture of what students are learning and what students are leaving the institution with. And then resources to assess communication. There is an oral and written communication value rubric through the AACU, so those are also, they're all free to download, and I'm happy to send the links for people who just need to make it easier. UC 120 uses a rubric around oral communication that's been used for many years now, and then English 111 and UC 110 also use a rubric for written communication. So those are already out there. They've already got processes in place. So for most of these, for example, in UC 120, we have it all embedded into Qualtrics already. And I can help make that process of inputting the rubrics in there much easier for you all as well. So what you need to do to complete your assessment plan. So before you get started, identify what learning outcomes you're assessing. So are you going to do ethics? What are you going to do within ethics and communications? What are you continuing to do? So there might be, again, some outcomes that aren't related to ethics and communication that you want to continue. What courses you're going to be assessing these outcomes, how you plan to assess it, the measure or targets, the people responsible, and how you anticipate using the results. So these are the things that you should know before you fill out, or at least have in mind what you're going to do before you fill out the form. So when you go in to fill it out, what I did was I put departments, and then these are so if you click on your department, the outcomes specific for that are from the bulletin. So if these do not match what you think your departmental outcomes are, please let me know ASAP. So these are the outcomes that are listed in the bulletin. So I use math because I was going to guess they didn't necessarily have an ethical or communication outcome. So if you so you can say you do not have an actual outcome. So then, actually, I think I might need to fix. Back up, sorry. Okay, well, I have to fix this, but the next, I think I messed up. The next question should have been, which one? So signature learning. So I'll give you a choice of the ethics or the communication. Then you would be prompted to what classes are you planning to assess this outcome. So I thought we fixed this yet, but apparently I did not do that. So I'll fix that. But so the next question would say like which one, ethics or communication. Then it'll ask you which class. And then these are different examples of how you might, just based on what people have done in the past. So you're going to do ethics and communications, many times it's going to be a rubric. And then the information I asked you about, what's your criteria, who's responsible, how do you anticipate using the results to improve student learning?
So this is a Rubik's bag, like we choose
Yes.
ethics, and then a Rubik's bag, and then we do.
Yep. So do you wish to say for some, couple things. It'll keep looping. I have it set up for all the loops. So you, in theory, could be able to sit down and just fill out everything at once. So in some cases, so if you are assessing, you want to assess ethics, and you want to use, let's say, a rubric, then also use, like, say, your idea results. So it'll allow you, so if you want to put in another method, you can hit yes, and then it should loop you back around, and you can fill out another method. If you click no, do you wish to, so if you say you wish to enter another learning outcome, if you hit yes, it'll restart you into the survey again, and you can go back in. So, timeline. If you need help, meet with me. Andrea and Jens are also great resources. If you have questions, the due dates are similar to years past, so October 15th for the initial plan, and then May 15th for the final results. For some, so people here who are not department chairs are taking this back to your department. Talk with your department about the assessment for this year. So hopefully this is giving you a better idea of like what the expectations are. Decide how you're going to examine ethics and communications within your particular program. Decide if there are any other learning outcomes for your department or program that you want to assess, and then complete the